Hi guys, I'm back. Today I'm going to read Joshua 6 to 11, Proverbs 31, and Psalm 124. Let's get started. Now Jericho was shut up inside and outside because of the people. None went out, and none came in. And the Lord said to Joshua, "See, I have given Jericho into your hand, with its king and its mighty men of valor. You shall march around the sea, all men of war going around the sea at once. Thus shall you do for 6 days. 7 priests shall bear 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark. On the 7th day you shall march around the sea 7 times, and the priests shall blow the trumpets. And when they make a long blast with the ram's horn, then you hear the sound of the trumpet, and all the people shall shout with a great shout, and the wall of the sea will fall down flat, and the people shall go up, everyone straight before him. So Joshua the son of Nun called the priests and said to him, Take up the ark of the covenant, and let 7 priests bear 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark of the Lord. And then he said to the people, Go forward, march around the sea, and let the armed men pass before the ark of the Lord. Just as Joshua had commanded the people, the 7 priests bearing 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the Lord went forth, blowing the trumpets with the ark of the covenant of the Lord following. The young men were walking before the priests who were blowing the trumpets, and the rear guard was walking after the ark, while the trumpets blew continually. But Joshua commanded the people, You shall not shout or make your voice, neither shall any word go out of your mouth, until the day I tell you to shout, and you shall shout. So he caused the ark of the Lord to circle the sea, going about at once. And they came into the camp and spent the night in the camp. And Joshua arose early in the morning, and the priests took up the ark of the Lord, and the 7 priests bearing the 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark of the Lord walked off, and they blew the trumpets continually, and the armed men were walking before, and the rear guard was walking after the ark of the Lord, while the trumpets blew continually. And the second day they marched around the sea once, and returned into the camp. And so they did for 6 days. On the 7th day they rose early at the dawn of the day, and marched around the city in the same manner 7 times. It was only on that day they had marched around the sea 7 times. And at the 7th time, when the priests had blown the trumpets, Joshua said to the people, Shout, the Lord has given you the sea, and all that is within it shall be devoted to the Lord for destruction. And Rahab the prostitute and all who are with it in her house shall live, because she hid the messengers whom he sent. And you keep yourself from the things devoted to destruction, to the Lord for destruction. Only Rahab the prostitute and all who are with her in her house shall live, because she hid the messengers whom we sent. You keep yourself from the things devoted to destruction, lest when you have devoted them, you take away any of the devoted thing, and make the camp a thing for destruction, and bring trouble upon it. But all silver and gold, and every vessel of bronze and iron are holy to the Lord. They shall go into the treasury of the Lord. So the people shouted, and the trumpets were blown. And as soon as the people heard the sound of the trumpet, the people shouted a great shout, and the wall fell down flat. So the people went up into the sea, every man straight before him, and they captured the city. Then they devoured all in the sea to destruction, both men and women, young and old, oxen, sheep, and donkeys, with the edge of the sword. But to the 2 men who had spied out the land, Joshua said, Go into the prostitute's house and bring out from there the women and all who belong to her, as he swore to her. So the young men who had been spies went in and brought out Rahab and her father and mother and brothers and all who belonged to her. And they brought all her relatives and put them outside the camp of Israel. And they burned the city with fire and everything in it, only the silver and gold and the vessels of bronze and iron. They put into the treasury of the house of the Lord. Rahab the prostitute and her father's household and all who belonged to her, Joshua saved her life, and she's lived in Israel to this day, because she hid the messengers whom Joshua sent to spy out Jericho. Joshua laid an oath with them at that time, saying, First before the Lord be the man who rises up and rebuilds the city of Jericho. And at the cost of his firstborn shall he lay its foundation, and at the cost of his youngest son shall he set its gates. And so the Lord was with Joshua, and his fame was in all the land. So the people of Israel broke faith in regard to the devoted things. For Achan, the son of Carmi, son of Zabdi, son of Zerah of the tribe of Judah, took some of the devoted things, and the anger of the Lord burned against the people of Israel. Joshua sent men from Jericho to Ai, which is near Beth-aven, east of Bethel, and said to them, Go up and spy the land, and do not have all. And they returned to Joshua and said to him, Do not have all the people go up, but let about 2,000 or 3,000 men go up and attack Ai. Do not make the people toil up there. They are few. So about 3,000 men went up there from the people. And they fled before the men of Ai. And the Ai killed about 36 of their men and chased them before the gate, fire Shechem, and struck them at the descent. And the hearts of the people melted and became as water. And Joshua tore his clothes and fell to the earth and stayed before the ark of the Lord until evening, he and the elders of Israel. And they put dust on their heads. And Joshua said, Thus said the Lord God, why have you brought this people over the Jordan at all, to give us into the hands of the Amorites, to destroy us? Would that we had been content to dwell beyond the Jordan? O Lord, what can I say? When Israel turned their backs before their enemies, when the Canaanites and all the inhabitants of the land all hear of it, and will surround us, and cut off our name from the earth. And what will you do for your greatness? The Lord said to Joshua, Get up, why have you fallen in your faith? Israel has sinned, they have transgressed over my covenant, that I command them. They have taken some of the divided things. They have stolen and lied and put them among their own belongings. Therefore the people of Israel cannot stand before their enemies. They turn their backs before their enemies, because they have become devoted for destruction. I'll be with you no more, unless you destroy the devoted things from among you. Get up, consecrate the people, and say, Consecrate yourselves for trial. For thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, ye are devoted things in your midst, Israel. You cannot stand before your enemies until you take away the divided things from among you. In the morning, therefore, you shall be brought near by your tribes, and the tribe that the Lord takes by law shall come near by clans, and the clan that the Lord takes shall come near by households. And the household that the Lord takes shall come near man by man. If he is taken with the devoted things, shall be burned with fire, and he and all that he has, because he has transgressed the covenant of the Lord, and because he has done an outrageous thing in Israel. So Joshua rose early in the morning and brought Israel near tribe by tribe. And the tribe of Judah was taken, and he brought near the clans of Judah, and the clan of the Zerahites was taken. And he brought near the clan of the Zerahites man by man, and Zabdi was taken. And he brought near his household man by man. And Achan the son of Carmi, son of Zabdi, son of Zerah, of the tribe of Judah, was taken. And Joshua said to Achan, my son, give glory to the Lord God of Israel, and give praise to him. And tell me now what you have done. Do not hide it from me. And Achan answered Joshua, Truly I have sinned against the Lord God of Israel. And this is what I did. When I saw among the spoil a beautiful cloak from Shinar, and 200 shekels of silver, and a bar of gold weighing 50 shekels, and I coveted them and took them. And see, they are hidden in the earth inside my tent, with silver underneath. So Joshua sent messengers, and they ran to the tent, and behold, it was hidden in his tent with silver underneath. And they took them out of the tent, and brought them to Joshua, and to all the people of Israel, and they laid them down before the Lord. And Joshua and all the people, all Israel with him, took Achan the son of Zerah, and his whole band, the cloak, and the bar of gold, he and his sons and his daughters, and the oxen, his oxen and donkeys and sheep, and his tent, and all that he had. And they brought them up to the valley of Achor. And Joshua said, Why did you bring trouble on us? The Lord brings trouble on you today. And all Israel stoned him with stones. They burned him with fire and stoned him with stones. And they raised over him a great heap of stones that remains to this day. And the Lord turned from his burning anger. Therefore, to this day, the name of that place is called the Valley of Achor. And the Lord said to Joshua, Do not fear and do not be dismayed. Take all the fighting men with you, and arise, go up to Ai. See, I have given into your hand the king of Ai, and his people, his sea, and his land. See, and you shall do to Ai and its king as you did to Jericho and its king. And its spoil and its livestock you shall take as plunder for yourself. Lay an ambush against the city behind it. So Joshua and all the fighting men arose to go up to Ai, and Joshua chose 30,000 mighty men of valor and sent them out to fight. Sent them out by night, and he commanded them, Behold, you shall lie in ambush against the sea behind it. Do not go very far from the sea, but all of you remain ready. I and all the people who are with me will approach the sea, and when they come out against us just before, we shall flee before them. And then you shall rise up from the ambush and seize the sea, for the Lord your God will give it into your hand. And as soon as you have taken the sea, you shall set the sea on fire, and you shall do according to the word of the Lord. See, I have commanded you. So Joshua sent them out, and they went to that place of ambush, and lay between Bethel and Ai, and to the west of Ai. But Joshua spent that night among the people. Joshua rose early in the morning and mustered the people in order. He and the elders of Israel before the people to Ai. And all the fighting men who were with him went up and drew near before the sea. and encamped on the north side of Ai, with a ravine between them and Ai. He took about 5,000 men and set them in ambush between Bethel and Ai, to the west of the sea. There they stationed the forces. The main encampment was north of the sea, and its rear guard west of the sea. But Joshua spent the night in the valley. And as soon as the king of Ai saw this, he and all the people, the men of the sea, hurried and went out early to the appointed place toward the Arabah to meet Israel in battle. But he did not know that there was an ambush against him behind the sea. Joshua and all Israel pretended to be beaten before them and fled in the direction of the wind. So all the people who were in the sea called together to pursue them. And as they pursued Joshua, they were drawn away from the sea. Not a man was left in Beer or Ai or Bethel who did not go out after Israel. They left the city open and pursued Israel. And the Lord said to Joshua, stretch out the javelin that is in your hand toward Ai, and I will give it into your hand. So Joshua stretched out the javelin that was in his hand toward the sea. And as soon as the men in the ambush quickly rose out of their place. And as soon as he stretched out his hand, they ran it into the sea, captured it, and they hurried to set the sea on fire. And when the men of Ai looked back, and behold, the smoke of the sea went up to heaven. They had no power to flee this way or that. All the people who fled to the wilderness turned back against the pursuers. And when Joshua and all Israel saw that the ambush had captured the city, and that the smoke of the sea went up, they turned back and struck down the men of Ai, and the others came out from the sea against them. So they were in the midst of Israel, some of them this side and some on that side. And Israel struck them down, until there was left none that survived or escaped. And the king of Ai they took alive, and brought him near to Joshua. And Israel finished killing all of Ai in the open wilderness where they had pursued them. And all of them to the very last had fallen by the edge of the sword. All Israel returned to Ai, and struck down with the edge of the sword. And all who fell that day, both men and women, were 12,000, all the people of Ai. But Joshua did not draw back his hand with which he stretched out the javelin, until he had divided all the inhabitants of Ai to destruction. And the livestock and the spoil of that city Israel took as their plunder, according to the word of the Lord that he commanded Joshua. So Joshua burned Ai and made it forever a heap of ruins, as it is to this day. And he hanged the king of Ai on a tree until evening. And at sunset Joshua turned, and they took his body down from the tree and threw it at the entrance of the gate of the sea, and raised over it a great heap of stones, which stands there to this day. And at that time Joshua built an altar to the Lord, the God of Israel, on Mount Ebal, just as Moses the servant of the Lord God had commanded the people of Israel, as it is written in the book of the law of Moses, an altar of uncut stones, upon which no man has wielded an iron tool. And they offered on it a burnt offerings to the Lord, and sacrificed peace offerings. And there, in the presence of the people of Israel, he wrote on the stones a copy of the law of Moses, which he had written. And all Israel stood, as well as native born, with their elders and officials and their judges. Judges stood on opposite sides of the ark before the Levitical priests who carried the ark of the covenant of the Lord, half of them in front of Mount Gerizim and half of them in front of Mount Ebal. Just as Moses the servant of the Lord had commanded at the first to bless the people of Israel. And afterward he read all the words of the law, the blessing and the curse, according to all that is written in the book of the law. There was not a word of all that Moses commanded that Joshua did not read before all the assembly of Israel, and the little ones, and the sojourners who lived among them. And as soon as all the kings who were beyond the Jordan, in the hill country and in the lowland, all along the coast of the Great Sea toward Lebanon, and the Hittites and the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites heard this. They gathered together as one to fight against Joshua and Israel. And when the inhabitants of Gibeon heard that what Joshua had done to Jericho and to Ai, they on their part acted with cunning and went ready to make provisions, and were not sacked on for their donkeys, and wineskins were not torn and mended, with worn out patched sandals on their feet, and worn out clothes. And all their provisions were dry and crumbly. And they went to Joshua in the camp at Gilgal and said to him, and to the men of Israel, we have come from a distant country, so now make a covenant with us. And the end of it Israel said to the Hivites, perhaps you live among us, then how can we make a covenant with you? And I said to Joshua, we are your servants. And Joshua said to them, who are you, and where do you come from? They said to him, from a very distant country your servants have come, because of the name of the Lord your God. We have heard a report of him, and all that he did in Egypt, and all that he did to the two kings of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan, to Sihon the king of Heshbon, and to Og king of Bashan, who lived in Ashtaroth. So our elders and all the inhabitants of our country said to us, take provisions in your hand for the journey and go to meet them and say to them, we are your servants, come now. Make a covenant with us. Here's our bread. It was still warm when we took it from our houses as our food was journey on the day when we said to come to you. But now behold, it is dry and crumbly. These wineskins were new when we filled, but behold, they burst. And these garments and sandals of ours are worn out from the very long journey. So the men took some of their provisions, and did not ask counsel from the Lord. And Joshua made peace with them and made a covenant to them to let them live. And the leaders of the congregation swore to them. At the end of 3 days, after they had made a covenant, they heard that they were their neighbors, and they had lived among them. And the people of Israel set out and reached their cities on the 3rd day. Now the cities were Gibeon, Chephirah, Beer, and Kiriath-Jearim. But the people of Israel did not attack them, because the leaders of the congregation had sworn to them by the Lord, the God of Israel. And all the congregation murmured against the leaders. But all the leaders said to all the congregation, we have sworn to them by the Lord, the God of Israel, and now we may not do harsh to them. This we will do to them, let them live, lest wrath be upon us. Because of the oath that we swore to them, and the leaders said to them, let them live. So they became cutters of wood and drawers of water for all the congregation, just as the leaders had said of them. Joshua summoned, and he said to them, why did you deceive us, saying, we are very far from you, when you dwell among us? Now therefore you are cursed, and some of you shall never be anything but servants, cutters of wood, and drawers of water for the house of my God. They answered Joshua, because he was told to your servants for a certainty, that the Lord your God has commanded his servant Moses to give you all the land, and to destroy all the inhabitants of the Lord from before you. So we feared greatly, and for our lives, because you did this thing. And now behold, we are in your hand. Whatever seems good and right in your sight to do to us, do it. So he did this to them and delivered them out of the hand of the people of Israel, and they did not kill them. Joshua made them that day cutters of wood and drawers of water for the congregation and for the altar of the Lord to this day in the place that he should choose. And as soon as Adoni-Zedek, king of Jerusalem, heard how Joshua had captured Ai and had devoted it to destruction, he joined Ai and its king, as he had done to Jericho and its king, and how the inhabitants of Gibeon had made peace with Israel and were among them. He feared greatly, because Gibeon was a great city, like one of the royal cities, and because he was greater than Ai, and all his men were warriors. So Adoni-Zedek, king of Jerusalem, sent to Hoham, king of Hebron, to Piram, king of Jarmuth, to Japhia, king of Lachish, and to Debir, king of Eglon, saying, come to me and help me, and let us strike Gibeon. He has made peace with Joshua and with the people of Israel. And the 5 kings of the Amorites, the kings of king of Jerusalem, king of Hebron, king of Jarmuth, king of Lachish, and the king of Eglon, gathered their forces and went up with all their armies, and encamped against Gibeon and made war against it. And the men of Gibeon sent to Joshua at the camp in Gilgal, saying, do not relax your hand from your servants. Come up to us quickly and save us and help us. For all the kings of the Amorites who dwell in the hill country are gathered to go against us. So Joshua went up from Gilgal, he and all the people of war with him, and all the mighty men of Val. And the Lord said to Joshua, do not fear, for I have given them into your hand. Not a man of them shall stand before you. So Joshua came upon them suddenly, having marched up all night from Gilgal, and the Lord threw them into a panic before Israel. He struck them with a great blow at Gibeon, and chased them by the way of Assen and Beth-horon, and struck them as far as Azekah and Makkedah. And as they fled before Israel, now they were going down the Assen and Beth-horon, the Lord threw down large stones from heaven on them, as far as Azekah, and they died. There were more who died because of the hailstones than the sons of Israel killed with the sword. And at that time Joshua spake to the Lord in the day when the Lord gave the Amorites over to the sons of Israel. And he said in the sight of Israel, sun, and stand still at Gibeon, and moon in the valley of Aijalon. And the sun stood still, and the moon shone, until the nation took vengeance on their enemies. Is this not written in the book of Joshua? And the sun stopped in the midst of heaven, and did not hurry to set about for a whole day. There has been no day like it before or since. And the Lord knew the voice of man, for the Lord fought for Israel. So Joshua returned, and all Israel with him, to the camp at Gilgal. For the 5 kings fled and hid themselves in the cave of Makkedah. And it was told to Joshua, the 5 kings have been found, and hidden in the cave of Makkedah. And Joshua said, roll large stones against the mouth of the cave, and set men by it to guard them. But do not stay there yourselves. Pursue your enemies and attack their rear guard. Do not let them enter their cities, for the Lord God has given them into your hand. When Joshua and the sons of Israel had finished striking them with a great blow, until they were wiped out, and when the remnant that had remained of them had entered into the fortified cities, and all the people returned safe to Joshua in the camp of Makkedah, Not a man moved his tongue against any of the people. So, Then Joshua said, "Open the mouth of the cave and bring those 5 kings out to me from the cave." And they did so, and brought those 5 kings out to him from the cave: the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Jarmuth, the king of Lachish, and the king of Eglon. And when they brought those kings to Joshua, Joshua summoned all the men of Israel, and said to the chiefs of the men of war who had gone with him, "Come near, put your feet on the necks of these kings." And they came near and put their feet on their necks. And Joshua said to them, "Do not be afraid or dismayed. Be strong and courageous, for thus the Lord will do to all your enemies against whom you fight." And afterward Joshua struck them and put them to death. And he hanged them on 5 trees, and they hung on the trees until evening. At the time of the going down of the sun, Joshua commanded, and they took them down from the trees and threw them into the cave where they had hidden themselves. And they set large stones against the mouth of the cave, where they remained to this very day. As for Makkedah, Joshua captured it on that day and struck it and its king with the edge of the sword. He devoted to destruction every person in it. He left none remaining, and he did to the king of Makkedah, just as he had done to the king of Jericho. And Joshua and all Israel with him passed on from Makkedah to Libnah and fought against Libnah. And the Lord gave Asa and his king into the hand of Israel, and he struck it with the edge of the sword, and every person in it. He left none remaining in it, and he did to his king as he had done to the king of Jericho. And Joshua and all Israel passed on from Libnah to Lachish and laid siege to it and fought against it. And the Lord gave Lachish into the hand of Israel, and he captured it and fought. Captured it on the 2nd day and struck it with the edge of the sword. Every person in it had died to Libnah. Then Horam, king of Gaza, came out to help Lachish. And Joshua struck it and his people until there was none remaining. Then Joshua and all Israel with him passed on from Lachish to Eglon, and then laid his siege to it and fought against it. And they captured it on that day and struck it with the edge of the sword. He devoted every person in it to destruction that day, and just as he had done to Lachish. And Joshua and all Israel with him went up from Eglon to Hebron, and they fought against it and captured it and struck it with the edge of the sword, and its king and his towns, and every person in it. He left none remaining, as he had done to Eglon, and devoted it to destruction, and every person in it. Then Joshua and all Israel with him turned back to Gibeah and fought against it, and he captured it with the king and all its towns. And they struck him with the edge of the sword, and devoted to destruction every person in it. They left none remaining, just as he had done to Hebron and to Libnah and its king. So he did to Gibeah and to its king. And Moses struck the whole land, the hill country, and the Negev, and the lowland, and all the slopes, and all their kings. He left none remaining, but devoted to destruction all that breeze, just as the Lord God of Israel commanded. And Joshua struck them from Kadesh Barnea as far as Gaza, and all the country of Goshen as far as Gibeah. And Joshua captured all these kings and their land at one time, because the Lord God of Israel fought for Israel. And Joshua returned, and all Israel with him, and they to the camp at Gilgal. And Jabin, king of Hazel, heard of it. He sent to Jerubbaal, king of Madon, and to the king of Shimron, and to the king of Aksaph, and to the kings who were in the northern hill country, and the Abra south of Chinneroth, and in the lowland, and in Naphthoth door to the west, and the west to the Canaanites in the east, and the west to the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, and the Jebusites in the hill country, and the Hivites under Hermon, and the land of Mizpah. And they came in with all their troops, a great horde, in number like the sand that is on the seashore, and with many horses and chariots. And all these kings joined their forces again, and came in camp together at the waters of Merom to fight against Israel. And the Lord said to Joshua, "Do not be afraid of them, for tomorrow at this time I will give over all of them slain to Israel. He shall hamstring their horses and burn their chariots with fire." So Joshua and all his warriors came suddenly against them by the waters of Merom, and fell upon them. And the Lord gave them to the hand of Israel, who struck them and chased them as far as Great Sidon and Mizrephoth-Maim, and eastward as far as the valley of Mizpeh, and they struck them until he left none remaining. And Joshua did to them just as the Lord said to him. He hamstrung their horses and burned their chariots with fire. And Joshua turned back at that time and captured Hazael and struck its king with the sword, for Hazael formerly was the head of all those kingdoms. And they struck with the sword all who were in it, devoting them to destruction. There was none left that breathed. And he burned Hazael with fire, and all the cities of those kings and all their kings Joshua captured, and struck them with the edge of the sword, devoting them to destruction, just as Moses the servant of the Lord had commanded. Then none of the cities that stood on Mount did Israel burn, except Hazael land that Joshua burned, and all the spoil of these cities and the livestock the people of Israel took for their plunder. Every person they struck with the edge of the sword until they had destroyed them. They did not leave any Hebrews, just as the Lord had commanded Moses his servant. So Moses commanded Joshua, and so Joshua did. He left nothing undone of all that the Lord had commanded Moses. So Joshua took all that land, the hill country and all the Negev, and all the land of Goshen and the lowland and the Arabah, and the hill country of Israel, and this lowland from Mount Halak. It rises towards there as far as Balga in the valley of Lebanon below Mount Hermon. And they captured all their kings and struck them and put them to death. Joshua made war a long time with all those kings. There was not a city that made peace with the people of Israel except the Hivites, the inhabitants of Gibeon. He took them all in battle, for it was the Lord's doing to harden their hearts, and that they should come against Israel in battle, in order that they should be devoted to destruction, and should receive no mercy, but be destroyed, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. And Joshua came at that time and cut off the Anakim from the hill country, from Hebron, from Debir, and from Anak, and from all the hill country of Judah, and from all the hill country of Israel. Joshua devoted them to destruction with their cities. There was none of the Anakim left in the land of the people of Israel. Only in Gaza, in Gath, and in Ashdod did some remain. So Joshua took the whole land, according to all that the Lord had spoken to Moses. And Joshua gave it for an inheritance to Israel, according to the tribal allotments. And the land had rest from war. Proverbs 31. The words of King Lemuel, an oracle that his mother told him. What are you doing, my son? What are you doing, son of my womb? What are you doing, son of my vows? Do not give your strength to women, or your ways to those who destroy kings. It is not for kings, O Lemuel. It is not for kings to drink wine, or for rulers to take strong drink, lest they drink and forget what has been decreed, and pervert the rights of all the afflicted. Give strong drink to the one who is perishing, and wine to those in bitter distress. Let them drink and forget their poverty, and remember their misery no more. Open your mouth for the meek, for the right of all who are destitute. Open your mouth, judge righteously, defend the rights of the poor and needy. An excellent wife who can find, she is far more precious than jewels. The heart of the husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and no harm all the days of her life. She seeks wool and flax and works with willing hands. She is like the ships of the merchant who brings her food from afar. She rides while it is yet night, and provides food for her household and portions for her maidens. She considers a field and buys it, and with the fruit of her hand she plants a vineyard. She charges herself with strength and makes her arms strong. She perceives that her merchandise is profitable. Her lamp does not go out at night. She puts her hand to the distaff, and her hands hold the spindle. She opens her hand to the poor, and reaches out her hands to the needy. She is not afraid of snow for her household, and for all her household are clothed in scarlet. She makes bed coverings for herself. Her clothing is violet and purple. Her husband is known in the gates when he sits among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them. She delivers sashes to the merchant. Strength and dignity are her clothing, and she laughs at the time to come. She opens her mouth with words, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. She looks forward to the ways of her household, and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children rise up and call her blessed. Her husband only praises her. Many women have done excellently. Her deeds surpass them all. Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Give her the fruit of her hands, and let her work praise her in the gates. Psalm 124. If it had not been the Lord who was on our side, that is on our side, if it had not been the Lord who was on our side when people rose up against us, then they would have swallowed us up alive when their anger was kindled against us, and the flood would have swept us away. The storm would have gone over us, and over us would have gone the raging waters. Blessed be the Lord who has not given us his prey to their teeth. We have escaped like a bird from the snare of the fowlers. The snare is broken, and we have escaped. Our hope was in the name of the Lord who made heaven and earth. Now that it's done, I should now do the Lord's Prayer. Please pray, Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come. who be on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread. Forgive us our debts as you receive from your debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. For yours is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. See you tomorrow. Bye.
추워, 오늘.